nutrition therapist, health coach to some of the world's leading entrepreneurs. Now, if you've seen a lot of my content over the last few years, you will know I have a massive focus on making sure people can sleep through the night. Now, one of the problems that we have is that so many people have this snooze button mentality, that they wake up and they still feel a bit tired. Now, what actually happens is they then smash that snooze button. They're not getting up straight away, and they do it 2, 3, 4 times. Or maybe they have this lay-in at the weekends. They wake up, and I had a client that she wakes up, has her breakfast, then goes back to bed. This could actually be something which is massively impacting your energy throughout the day and making you feel worse. Now, when we sleep, we go in cycles of sleep from light to deep and different stages of sleep. And these are usually around 90 minutes. Now, what actually happens is there's a different rhythm of our hormones and cortisol levels. But when we wake up in the morning, we should have a spike in this stress hormone called cortisol. Now, cortisol is one of the things which gets demonized a lot, but we absolutely need cortisol in order to wake up first thing in the morning. And throughout the day, we need it. If we have low blood sugar levels and we need this sugar to fuel our brain function, we will need to have cortisol to boost, to actually kick that glucose up. Now, one of the things we have is that cortisol, when we wake up in the morning, can't get my pen, when we wake up in the morning, cortisol will probably be around here. It will be like a little bit low. Now, the first thing that happens when we wake up is that this cortisol, or maybe it's a little bit higher, will go a little bit higher. And that's this cortisol awakening response. Now, if someone is very stressed out, they're not going to get this kick. Now, what actually happens throughout the day is this cortisol will go up and it starts coming back down again. And then in the evening, it's nice and low. Now, the problem is that this first hour response is very vital on when we wake up. We need to have this cortisol to kick in and kick this up, to make us feel energetic, to make us feel energized. Now, the problem is that it does this based on when we wake up. Now, if we wake up here, and then it starts kicking up this cortisol to the point that we then go into a snooze 15 minutes later, and we take a while to get into this deep sleep, and then that snooze is 15 minutes, we wake up as we're about to go into this sleep cycle, it's going to start kicking it up, and then suddenly it'll be like, oh, actually no, we'll go back down. Oh, we'll go back down. Oh, we'll go back down. So we start having an issue when it comes to cortisol rhythms. So we don't actually get this kick that wakes us up, which is vital for us to massively improve our health and massively feel energized throughout the day. And this is the same thing that happens, is that this time we like to have this consistency. We have this diurnal rhythm of cortisol, and we like to have a consistency with our circadian rhythm. So if this is 6 a.m. when you wake up, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but then you wake up at 9 a.m., your body's going to be used to kicking this cortisol up at 6 a.m., then actually now it's going to start kicking it up at 9 a.m. and so forth. Now, one of the problems that we have is that we see so many people that are burning out. So their adrenals aren't functioning as effectively as they could do. Not in adrenal fatigue as such, not actually their adrenals aren't working, but they're signaling from a thing called their hypothalamus to their pituitary to their adrenal glands isn't kicking in due to so much stress, so much irregularity around their circadian rhythm. So whilst let's ignore the sleep, the snooze button issue, what actually happens is they don't get enough cortisol. They have low cortisol. So actually, they may have this such a smaller actual kick in cortisol. Maybe they're even down here and it's just flat. And this is where we start getting massive issues with feeling lethargic, feeling tired. Now what happens? We kick caffeine in to make us feel good, to make us kick up this energy, which is then going to have more issues with us actually waking up and usually end up feeling more tired around here. Now, let's look at the other end of the day. This time, we want cortisol to stay low. We want it to stay low throughout the day. So it comes up and then it gets to around midday and then it stays low. So when we go to sleep, it's nice and low, so it's not going to be waking us up or anything. At that same point, we have a sleep hormone called melatonin. Now this melatonin will stay low throughout the day, and then what happens, around 5 hours before bed, we start getting it to go nice and high. Now, say this is like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m. Now, if we have stress that happens, let's get my other pen. If we have stress that happens and we kick this cortisol up, now this melatonin, which is the sleep hormone that makes us feel tired, that makes us get ready for bed, this melatonin will inadvertently come down as this cortisol goes up. They are inversely related and naturally invert with each other. So what we need to make sure we do is that the things that can kick our cortisol up, if we want to have a good level of sleep, as this melatonin is rising, the problem is it doesn't go up halfway then come down halfway. It goes back to the bottom and has to have this 5 hours to kick back in again. So what we need to do is make sure that things that are going to kick cortisol up in the evening, stressful things, hard exercise sessions, if you're smashing the gym at 8, 9 p.m, arguments, bright light exposure, screen time, all these things that are stressful on the body, we need to try and minimize them. Minimize stress throughout anyway, but actually in the evening, if you're having sleep issues, first thing we would look is what's happening in your evening routine, and are you actually using the snooze button? Are you having lay-ins? Are you being consistent with what happens in the morning? Now, if you're not being consistent with what happens in the morning, we're going to have issues with this diurnal cortisol rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is going to have issues. We're not going to have this natural kick of high cortisol, which we need, and we're not going to have it low in the evening. If we don't have good diurnal rhythm of cortisol, we are going to struggle with our health throughout. Hopefully you've got some pointers from that. What can you do? Well, the problem is the snooze. If we are constantly having snooze issues and we're smashing that snooze button, we have to wake up, we have to get up, we have to push and force ourselves until it becomes normal. Now the problem is that it's not easy to do that every single day. Now, I talk about this stuff. I do not use the snooze button. There are some days when I do not want to get up out of bed. Trust me, that we've had the clocks changed recently. I did not want to get up out of bed the day after that because we've lost an hour. It was also a night where we went out in the evening, so there was already an hour less sleep. But the most consistent we can be, the more consistent we can be with when we go to sleep and when we wake up, the better we are going to feel, because we're going to get this natural curve of higher cortisol and then lower in the evening. And then we're also going to get this curve of melatonin, which kicks up and allows us to go to sleep and switch off. And when we switch off, we have our hormones balanced with natural detoxification systems kicking into place. Things that are actually going to allow us to recharge. And if you are struggling with weight loss, if you are struggling with hormones, if you are struggling with menopause or testosterone issues and these sorts of things, struggling with moods, anxiety, low motivation, if we can kick ourselves into gear right here, we are going to notice so much more energy, so much more drive, so much more motivation throughout the day, and so much more results. Now, if you need help with this, drop me a message. Go to ojayhealth.com. There's loads of information there. There's some articles that you can read on these different topics, or hit me up on social media at OJ Health. And you can ask me questions. I will do some content on this. If you want to talk about one-to-one coaching, simply drop me a message and we can get on a call to see if it's the right thing that will work.